Hello! Today I will provide a quick presentation on the pulse jet engine. In this video, I will describe the basic configurations, fundamental cycle, some examples of use, and possible future developments. Pulse jets are some of the most simple engines in the world. In general, there are two basic design configurations classified by whether or not they contain one or no moving parts. On the left is an example of the author's own valved pulse jet engine, which features one moving part, a valve, just behind the red cap. The engine on the right is a valveless engine and is essentially a specially contoured U-bend pipe with no moving parts. Because of the lack of moving parts, these engines are largely designed and built around a metal tube, making them easy to design and manufacture. Because these engines are so simple to design and manufacture, they are most frequently used by hobbyists for recreational use. One common example is shown on the top left and right pictures, which are of valved pulse jet engines attached to RC airplanes. Larger engines can be made and used for things like driving go-karts, as shown on the lower right. While they are now mostly used by hobbyists, I must of course reference their use by the Nazi military on the V-1 flying bomb, an early example of a cruise missile, shown on the bottom left. In the following slides, I will discuss how valveless pulse jet engines work. A valved pulse jet engine works in the same way, but there is a valve after the inlet that helps contain the combusting gases. This type of engine will not be shown here. One of the most basic examples of a pulse jet is a jar of fuel with a hole cut in the top. When the fumes inside the jar are ignited, cyclical action is observed and thrust is generated. This can be seen in the following video. According to Robert Louis Orden in the provided reference, the pulse jet operates in a combination of the Lenoir cycle and the Humphrey cycle. In this video, I describe the thermodynamic cycle of a valveless pulse jet using the Lenoir cycle. At the start of the cycle, fuel and air begin to burn at low temperature and low pressure. As the fuel and air burn, the gas undergoes a constant volume heat addition and compression process. When the fuel and air are done burning, the exhaust gases are at high temperature and high pressure. Compression waves, shown in purple, will form at the inlet and exit of the combustion chamber. The exhaust gases begin to expand isentropically and exit out of the inlet and exit. Once the exit side compression wave exits the engine, it will rarefact and begin to enter the engine. When this happens, the pressure inside the combustion chamber will have dropped sufficiently to begin to intake fresh air. Once the fuel and air ratio is correct, the ambient heat inside the engine and the heat from the previous cycle will ignite them. This will continue the cycle. This slide lists a number of videos with examples of working models. First is an example of a U-bend Lockwood pulse jet. Second is an example of a Lockwood engine, but in a straight configuration. Last of the valveless pulse jets is a design sometimes referred to as a thermojet.
A few videos ago I made this. This is a pulse jet engine that creates thrust through reciprocating pulsated combustion. I don't know how to weld, so I made it using a 3D printed mold and carbon fiber. And guess what? It worked.
Finally is an example of a valved pulse jet. When considering a pulse jet for redesign, there are advantages and disadvantages. As already discussed, they are easy to make and design, resulting in a low-cost solution for producing thrust. This makes them an attractive option for disposable aircraft like the V-1. Also, their lack of parts makes it easier to prevent weak links in the chain, since the chain is relatively short. Unfortunately, there are serious limitations for applications of pulse jets on manned aircraft. They are characteristically loud, as compression waves are a feature of their cycle. Also, the unregulated exhaust contains a lot of unburned fuel, resulting in safety and efficiency problems. Related to aircraft design would be the fatigue stresses caused by the distinct pulses against the engine supports and the vibrations experienced by the pilot and passengers. Finally, the Lenoir cycle these engines run on is roughly triangular. When considering a Brayton cycle, which is roughly rectangular, it should be expected that it will have more area in the enclosed cycle operating under the same temperature and pressure ratios. Since this area represents the work done by the cycle, the Brayton cycle will always outperform the Lenoir cycle, making it a better option where fuel efficiency and thrust are concerned. Since there are many engines that already run on the Brayton cycle, the Lenoir cycle, and the pulse jet are already somewhat obsolete. One solution to this is to add what is missing from the Lenoir cycle, an isentropic compression. This augmentation creates the Humphrey cycle, which would add more area in the enclosed cycle, which would improve power and efficiency. However, including a fan compressor would require a fan turbine, which would be subjected to both the typical static loads and the new fatigue loads from the pulses. That said, there is still room in the design space for further development, and at least 3 designs have been theorized to have applications up to and including hypersonic flight. One of these exploits the striking similarity of the hardware configuration between a straight Lockwood pulse jet and a typical ramjet. By doing this, the compression is achieved with an inlet nozzle and a non-trivial forward momentum. While this could be done, it is still a developmental concept, though attempts have been made. Also to come is a variation of the pulse jet called a pulse detonation engine, or PDE. In this case, the compression wave forms into a true shock wave, which has a more powerful pressure difference across it, which increases power. This is also still in development. Even more advanced than a PDE is a rotating detonation engine. In a PDE, the shock wave is accelerated out of the engine through the exhaust. In an RDE, the shock wave is contained within an annular combustion chamber and rotates around the chamber's circumference. This is still a developmental concept and is still largely theoretical. With that, thank you very much for watching.